Just a preview.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura, and this is my spiritual journey. It's my story. It's my journey, if you will. It is a story like none other because it's mine. Not necessarily more special or flashy, but it's special to me. It's filled with joy and sadness, faith and faltering, and lots of questions. It's been a journey up a mountain, always searching, always seeking. And I think we're all here for similar reasons. We're all searching for answers. How do we remember all the important things that happen to us in our life? Of course, we remember the big events, graduating from high school or college, getting married, giving birth to our children, or losing someone that we love. But it's in those little day-to-day things that I would really like to remember more. Thank God for photos. I don't know if you're like me, but it's a blur, and it seems like the older you get, the faster it goes. I grew up in the southwest suburbs of Chicago in a little town called Willow Springs, in a loving but sometimes challenging home. My childhood was a bit lonely at times, as I was the only girl in the entire neighborhood, which pretty much made me a tomboy, and I have several scars to prove it. I was the youngest with two older brothers, and although we grew up in the same house, it's amazing how we all turned out completely different. Not bad, but just different. People often thought that I was the oldest, maybe in a past life. My parents, who bought our home for my mother's grandmother, was smuggled in a trunk from Lithuania when she was just 18 years old. They would put her family on a farm, clearing the farm of all the rocks, and she decided she wasn't going to live her life that way, so she came to America and never saw her family again. Although I never knew my great-grandmother, I felt her presence in that home. I felt her strength. I believe I did inherit some of her strengths and traits, and it helped me get through tough times. My parents loved us, but the relationship was difficult. I realized later in life how much the dynamics of the relationship and my father's constant criticism of my mother and how passive she was had affected me. There were tough times in those early years. I remember about 5 years old thinking, what was going to happen with my family? Were they going to get divorced? My dad had grown up in a strict Czechoslovakian household where the men ruled the roost. He was a roofer by trade, hardworking, but he liked to go out with his friends after work and drank a little bit too much. There were two events from that time that I can see so clearly like they happen today. One night, my father grabbed my mother by the neck, pushed her against the wall, and I remember as a little girl pulling on his arm and saying, "Daddy, stop." Not knowing that moment would become such a pivotal point in my life. Another night, he came home drunk, saw that the dishes from dinner were still all over the kitchen table, so he flipped the table, pushed my mother outside, and then once he went to bed, we let her back in. Not long after that, my mom told him if he didn't stop drinking every day, she was leaving and taking us, and she meant it. Thankfully, he mostly stopped and things got better, but he was still difficult, always critical. Nothing my mom ever did was good enough, and I remembered how much that bothered me. That she didn't stand up for herself, she stayed quiet and accepted it. That became another defining moment in my life. Something that shaped how I saw strength, love, and courage later in life. I vowed that I would never marry anyone like that, or so I thought. I do believe my father wanted to be a good dad and husband. He was just never taught how. He's usually the first one that shows up in my readings. Quite often he's apologizing, and he's always telling me how much he loved me. My first true spiritual experience that I can recall occurred when I was about 7 years old. I was lying in bed when my grandfather suddenly appeared to me. It was my mom's dad, and he had died when I was 3 years old, so I really didn't remember him at all. And yet somehow I knew that was him. And he would come to me off and on for several years, and he would give me comfort and make me feel safe. I'm quite certain he's one of my guardian angels. Growing up, I always felt that something was missing in my life. I wasn't sure what it was, but that's when I became a seeker. I was always looking, trying different churches, joining Bible study groups, asking questions, always wanting to find answers. I was always talking to God. Somehow it was just in me. It was not taught to me. I learned that God does answer your questions. It might not be in the time you expect, and it might not be the answers that you want, but our Father knows what's best for us. I once heard something that said, "You need to be still to hear." It's funny how young children have this innate knowledge. As a child, I didn't realize that when I was sitting up in our apple tree, which I did quite often, or lying underneath the big willow tree that was at the back of our property, staring up the clouds, I was actually meditating, long before I knew what meditation was. It was in those quiet moments I was with God. I could feel his presence comforting me, whispering, "Yes, Laura, everything will be all right." He reminded me that I was not a strange, gawky child as I often thought, and sometimes really believed, that I did belong, even when I felt like I didn't in those moments. I felt accepted and loved. That connection became my safe haven through much of my grammar school years, a sacred time of renewal when I felt restored, regenerated, and revived. Psalm 8, 3-4 says, "When I look at the sky which you made, at the moon and the stars which you have set in their places, what are human beings that you think of them, mere mortals that you care for them?" Even then, I knew God saw me. As I got older, I carried that faith with me. But life, as it tends to do, got complicated. My dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. We always did have a strained relationship, as I never quite forgave him for how he treated my mother. But during this time, I felt a sense of forgiveness for him. He went through surgery and radiation, went into remission, and 2 years later, I met Bob. Just 4 years after we started dating, we found out the cancer had returned. On Thanksgiving, we announced our engagement, and the very next day, my dad died. I had so hoped he would be there to walk me down the aisle and to meet my children, but that did not happen. In March of 1996, we were married, but there were problems from the very beginning. In May of 1997, my son Robert was born. He was a joy, a gift from God. As I looked into his little blue eyes, I just knew that God was looking right at me. I vowed I would take care of him and treasure him forever. Our marriage continued to be strained. It turned out I did marry my dad, only worse. He was constantly angry. He took out his unhappiness on me with his job and his career choices. Everything was my fault, and I could do nothing right. He was verbally and mentally abusive to me. I considered leaving him many times, but then I was expecting our second child, and Michael was born in October 1999. I thought after Robert, it would be impossible to love someone as much, but somehow my heart just opened up even bigger. And when I looked into his beautiful little innocent face, I fell instantly in love with us. God gives our children as gifts. They are not ours. I have never taken that for granted. They are one of the greatest joys of my life. That time renewed my faith and recommitted me to making my marriage work and keeping my family together. We joined a local Catholic church, and my seeking and volunteering there spanned over 15 years. I taught the I'm Special preschool program and became a catechist as I wanted to take my sons through all of their sacraments until 8th grade. During my 10 years of marriage, I struggled with the why questions again. Why, God? Why me? Why can't I have a happy marriage? I can't get divorced and be away from my kids. That was way too heartbreaking for me. I know I'm just an ordinary woman, but I was striving to live an extraordinary life. Not that I was looking to be president or patron saint, but I've always had that longing to do for others, help other people, and share my faith. I struggled, but God is with us in our darkest moments. And I found out about Bob's affairs. Yes, there was more than one. And as I endured the constant criticism of my every being, I stayed. I stayed because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. God answered me when He told me He never intended us for just to endure life's struggles and pains. He created for us to enjoy life, embrace it, so that we can help others. After much soul searching, I just knew that if I was going to be the best mom I could be, if I was going to walk the talk, I had to show my sons that it was not right to treat a woman that way, for fear that they would repeat that behavior and have a failed marriage. So I got really brave. I filed for divorce. I endured a 2-year-long battle, which was finalized in 2008. Oh yes, in the crash of the real estate market. And by the way, I'm a realtor. I felt this sense of sadness in that time, but I also felt a sense of freedom and renewal as my sons and I were on a journey together. A journey to create a home filled with warmth, love, support, and God at the center of our lives. It was a challenging time, to say the least. I had to apply for public aid. The church came in and helped me several times, and so did my family and friends. It was the most humbling time of my life, but my faith did not waver. It only strengthened. Psalm 23, 1-4 says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He lets me rest in fields of green grass. He leads me to pools of fresh water. He gives me new strength. He guides me in right paths. And as He has promised, even if I go through the deepest darkness, I will not be afraid, Lord, You are with me." Through my spiritual studies and the work I've done in various classes, I've deepened my understanding of the divine connection we all share. I've studied the law of attraction. I follow many incredible teachers through books, YouTube, and many classes. People like Kyle Gray, who teaches about angels, Jane Roberts, author of the Oversoul 7. I've also explored the wisdom found in books, teachings, and classes about chakras, dream interpretation, and astrology. Along this journey, I became a Reiki master so that I could serve as a conduit for healing from God and Master Asubi. It is our practice. As our practice, we balance our chakras, use crystals and meditation and sound healing, all staying open, aligned, and attuned to the divine energy flowing through us. It allows us to be beacons of light for ourselves and others. And of course, our church family here at Healing Light, with their constant unconditional love and support, my life has changed profoundly. I feel calmer, more centered, more in control. I'm starting to understand some of the answers I've spent my whole life seeking. I've learned to sit quietly and listen, not just to God's voice, but also for guidance from my angels, my guides, and my loved ones who've crossed before me. Who, by the way, for some reason, feel that it's okay to die in front of me. I've often wondered why, but I believe it's because they know that I can handle it and I will help them cross. My mom passed in 2012 from lung cancer. I was there with her in the hospital when she took her last breath. And then my brother, at just 53 years old, also passed from lung cancer in the hospital. I was there with him too. That was especially painful as we were only 1 year apart and very close. My half-sister Cindy died right in my kitchen, gone in 7 minutes. I remember praying over her as I was texting our Reiki share group, asking them to pray for her highest and best good and send love to our family. I can't express how comforting it was in such a shocking and painful moment. And last year, my Aunt Nancy, who was like a second mother to me, she transitioned as well. I stayed with her for 6 weeks, working alongside hospice to help her. I sang to her, I prayed over her, I gave her morphine to keep her comfortable. I looked into her eyes and I said, "Do not be afraid. God is with you, and your family will be here to take you home." I'll never forget it. She looked up at me and quietly whispered, "I am not afraid." That moment, that sacred exchange, was one of the most profound experiences of my life. I have since remarried. My husband Marty, a kind and generous man, but also someone who can be a bit challenging at times. Through our journey together, he has taught me patience and the importance of perseverance, even when life or relationships test you. I've learned that love isn't just about ease or comfort, it's about growing together through the moments that stretch you. A few weeks ago, George spoke about legacies, and his words really made me reflect deeply. What do I want people to remember me by? I want my legacy to say she was kind, she was generous, she was always there when someone needed her. But beyond that, I hope people remember the way I made them feel, that I truly saw them, listened to them, and cared, that I offered lights in moment of darkness and hope when things felt uncertain. I want my life to stand as a reminder that love, compassion, and presence are what truly matter. Because in the end, our legacy isn't built by what we achieve, but is how we touch the hearts of others. In a world so often filled with chaos, war, and grief, I want to be a hopeful beam of light. I remember a reminder that love, compassion, and faith still exist, and that each one of us has the power to share a light with others. I hope to always recognize when someone needs me. I hope to remain open enough that people think they can come to me no matter what. I know God has been with me through it all. The joy, the pain, the loss, and the healing. He's shown me that even in the darkest valleys, light still shines its way through. That faith isn't the absence of fear. It's the courage to keep going, walking forward when you don't know what's on the other side. And that love, divine love, never leaves us. It lifts us, it guides us, and reminds us that we are never alone. And in the end, that love carries us home. I'd like to end with one of my favorite quotes. "Here's to your health, to every moment, every week, every month, and every year, that you wake up to the privilege of another breath and another chance to get it right. Thank you for allowing me to share my journey and my heart with you today. May God bless each and every one of you on your own path, and may love always lead you home." Thank you.